This one was really interesting because this one made me stop and think and go, wow, okay, so throughout the day, what are we actually saying? And if we were to categorize positive words, negative words, how many of those would be filling up the categories on each side? And this study clearly shows it that 80% of your thoughts are considered negative. And then on top of that, 95% of our total thoughts are considered repetitive. So let's just think about that for a moment. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, Matt just mentioned, whatever situation you're in, maybe there's events that you're dealing with, just the daily pressures of life. 80% of the time, you're thinking something negatively about it, which means you're more than likely going to reciprocate or affirm what it is that you're thinking. And not only that, it's one thing to think something negatively and say something negatively, but then you're just going to put it on repeat. Yikes. Not good. Okay, let's check out this other one. This one is about the 1,000, I think Sarah, was 1,000 things that people say each year are considered negative. We're going to pull this one up. I probably got I think I got the title slightly wrong. Oh, here it is. I remember now. It was, there are 1,000 times each year where people say something negative about themselves.
Man.
I'm not saying in general, because you can say a lot of negative things, but at least 1,000 times per year, on average, a person is saying something negative about themselves. And this one hit home for me because there's a lot out there where people are dealing with depression, anxiety, stress. Maybe you're feeling lonely. Maybe there's a feeling of hopelessness, all of those different things. We actually shared some statistics, I think that one of the previous episodes we were on, just about the level of depression that people are dealing with. But guys, this is it right here. What are you saying about yourself? We've kind of entered into this place, Matt, especially with the rise of social media. If we're not getting immediate results, or we're not seeing a ton of likes, or we're not getting a lot of supporters, it's like this spirit of self-hate just sets in right away. And the first thing we think about ourselves is, oh, well, nobody likes me, or I'm not good enough, or what I say just my voice doesn't matter. But you have to realize what it is that you're saying about yourself. And Matt mentioned this at the start of the show. It's like, listen, there's another study. I don't know. We can probably put that up too. But there's an article that says, the words that we say actually influence how we feel. And there's a scientific study that shows that when you say negative words or negative things, it actually increases levels of stress, anxiety, and worry in the body. So they've actually been able to identify, like doing a study, one person over here saying a positive thing and monitoring pH levels, your hormone balance, all those things, your stress levels, versus someone who is over here saying negative things. And they found that when you say negative things, you are more than likely going to raise stress levels, hormones that increase anxiety, and also you're gonna have a greater amount of worry. So you're going to release certain hormones that produce thoughts of worry in your mind. And here's why this is important, and why we're going to dive into this some more. We talked about this earlier this week, but it's like we're either the exterminator of shame or we're the producer of shame through our words. And our words literally are the framework. If you think about like building a house, there's a foundation, but then what goes up? The framing.
Yeah.
So when you think something, that's your foundation. That's your perspective, right? But when you say something, now you're actually building a framework of the place that you're going to live in. Are you going to live in a house of negativity? Are you going to live in a house of hopelessness? Are you going to live in a house of guilt, shame, self-hate? Or are you going to change the way you think, change what you say, and start living in a house of blessing, a house of generosity, a house of thankfulness, a house of being considerate of others, thinking of others? Or how about this, just a house of perseverance, even though you've been in that tough situation? No, I'm not going over to this house of negativity and giving up. I'm going to stay right here planted. And so that's what we're really going to dive into a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, the national, I saw this too, a National Science Foundation study found that most of us have between 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. So think about how many thoughts that is. And then it even goes on to say that, like you said, 80% of those thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive. So legitimately, think about that. 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. You know what's crazy is every action pretty much requires a thought. Everything we do in life requires a thought. So if you do something negative, you're also putting in the spirit words behind it, your endorsement behind it.
Oh, man.
So if you do something negative, you're releasing something negative in the spirit.
Oh,
If you're saying or doing something positive, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show about the foundation, you're either tearing it apart or you're building it up. And your actions are big in that. And, the other thing too is people's words, and allowing what people say to you to either affect you or not affect you, depending on what it is, And I think sometimes we sit and, there's a very fine line in caring about what people think and just not caring at all about what people think.
Right.
There are
Right.
times we need to not care what people say or think about us. And then there's times that, like, hey, your inner circle is there for you. You need to care maybe when God places something in their heart to speak into you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%.
Because you've been too negative and they're telling you, hey, get out of that, Or, you have those times where maybe you're standing on truth and standing on the word and you're being positive, but then the devil tries to put you in the front lines, and brings people in your pathway that try to get you off course or speak something negative to you. Well, if you believe that, you're speaking negative and endorsing negative over yourself. So the power of words is huge, man.
is.
And every action requires a thought. So you have to think before you go do something. And even if it's like, oh, well, I've just had a terrible day, so I'm going to go into the gym and throw weights around to let some stress and anger out. You've just endorsed the negative feeling inside of you.
Right.
And instead of handling it in the spirit, I'm not saying we can't handle things in the natural and do our hobbies or different things like that. Like, for some people it might be, I want to go for a run, or I want to go take a nap, or I want to go to the gym, or, hey, I want to go have my favorite cheeseburger because I had a stressful day. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but that cannot be our only foundation. That cannot be what we run to with 99.9% of or 100% of our problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The average needs to lean towards, we're running towards prayer, we're running towards godly people, godly things that bring us back in our spirit. And I think your words will change for the better when you live by the spirit as opposed to the negative and your flesh, right? Because the flesh and your soul is what produces feelings around you.
Yep.
But living by the spirit, and when the spirit is who you live by, it dictates to your soul and your flesh, your mind, will, and emotions. That's what your soul is, your mind, will, and emotions. But when we live by the spirit, our actions, our words, everything, all in that same conundrum start to line up. And then who you are on the outside has to line up with that.
Yep.
Because you're living internally where God resides.
So good. Yeah. So